What's up, everybody? I'm Josh Saleh, and welcome to another Let's Play with Josh Saleh. Today, we're playing Codenames. Codenames was released in 2015 and took the party game genre by storm. Their motto, win or lose, it's fun to figure out the clues. The designer and the creator is Vladja Kvaltil, and the publisher is Czech Games Edition. You can play with as little as 2 players or 8 or more. The more people, the better. You want to make sure you want to end on an even number as well, but not mandatory. That way you have an equal number of players on both sides. The playtime is about 15 minutes, but it could go a little bit over or even under depending on how fast you play. The game recommends ages 10 and up, though you might be able to go a little bit younger depending on how many words they know. The difficulty is about 1 out of 5 on the scale, very easy to learn and very family friendly. The price of the game right now is around $20. Sometimes you can get it for cheaper depending on deals or discounts on various sites. So in the box you have your red team tiles, your blue team tiles, a black one for assassin, and your beige civilian tiles. Also, you have a bunch of different word cards. They are double-sided, so you can switch them off when you start a new game. You have a timer in case people take too long. You also have your Spy Master cards that comes with a little holder as well. The first thing you want to do is divide into 2 teams, a red team and a blue team. While you're deciding who's on what team, you want to have someone put down 25 word cards in a 5x5 grid. Your board should look a little bit like this. 25 words on a 5x5 grid. From your 2 teams, you want to choose a Spy Master for each team. That's going to be your team captain for this first round. Once you have your Spy Masters picked out, make sure they sit on the opposite side of the table or away from their team, because they're going to get what we call the key, which is going to let them know which words is on whose team. So once you choose your key, there's going to be 4 lights around it. Whatever color those lights are, whether red or blue, that's going to be the team that starts. In your red and blue tile piles, there is a double agent, red or blue. Whoever team goes first is going to start with them. They have to guess an extra word because their team went first. Because blue team is going first, because that is the color outlined around the key, they're going to have 9 blue tiles. The red team is going to have 8 red tiles. Civilians on the side and the assassin on the side. Now what the Spy Masters are looking at is a grid of what colors belong to their team. Whichever are blue is the blue team. Whichever is red is the red team. Whichever are beige are civilians, and the black one is the assassin. The team that guesses all their words first wins the game. Now the Spy Master can see which words their team is associated with. The blue team would start first, and the Spy Master of the blue team will look with their key to see which words they need their team to guess. They now can give a clue. That clue must be related to their words on the board. They don't want their team to guess the red words, and they don't want their team to guess the civilian words, and they definitely don't want their team to guess the assassin word. They would give a 1-word clue and a number depending on how many cards on the table associate with that word. That 1 word cannot be a word already on the table, and it has to relate to one of the words. For example, I could not say male in association with tail, because they don't really have anything to do with one another, and I'm just going on the rhyming aspect of it. I could start with 1 word and try to have my team guess nail, so I might say hammer 1. 1 word on this table corresponds with the word hammer. Now hopefully the word I gave does not correspond to any red words, the civilian words, or the assassin word. The team would then talk amongst themselves and try and see what the Spy Master wants them to guess. They can talk out loud, they can debate, they can say whatever they like. The Spy Master cannot say anything. No emotion and no reaction from the Spy Master, because it could help their team guess. So they'd go through the board, and when they are ready to guess, they would touch a card on the table. That is your final answer. Once you touch a card on the table, that means you're guessing. Once they touch a card on the table, if it's a blue tile goes on top, they've gotten it right. If it's a red tile, the other team scores a point and the turn ends. If it's a beige tile, the turn ends and now it's the red team's turn. If it's the assassin, the game automatically ends and the blue team would lose. So whoever guesses the assassin card would lose the game. Now, if I did do 1 clue, hammer 1, that's not getting a lot of words off the table. That gives red a chance to win pretty easily, especially because I have 1 more word than they do. So I might want to do a 2 or a 3, but that's where it gets kind of difficult. The more words you try and relate to, the more chances your team has of guessing the wrong word. Some firm rules that Codename has is your word must have to do with the meaning of a word on the board. For example, I can't say gland 1 for England. The team must have to guess at least once before they can choose to pass. So if I gave them a clue of 3 cards on the table, so a word and 3, my team gets 3 guesses to guess those words on the table. They can choose to guess once, and if they get it right, they can go again if they like to, or they can choose to pass if they don't want to mess up. Because gland is not only in the word England, but also it does not have any meaning to England. If you have 3 words that start with the same letter, like bed, bug, and bite, you could not say B3, as in B and then 3 cards relating to B. That does not have any meaning to those words. You have to think of a word that has meaning to do with all 3 of them and that can connect them. Letters and numbers are valid for clues, so if Ray was on the board, you could say X for 1, because X-ray, you can put them together. Let's say you have ball, figure, and octopus. You could say 8-3. 3 of the words correspond to 8, the number. 8 ball, figure 8, an octopus has 8 tentacles. You cannot use any words that you see on the table. For example, mug, you cannot use mug as a clue, but once mug is covered, you can then use mug if you wanted to. You can choose to spell out your word, but the pronunciation has to stay the same. For example, B-O-W, there's bow, bowing in a theater, and bow, the bow of a ship. So you have to choose which pronunciation you want to say, but you can still spell it out. These are some house rules that you can choose to have. Proper names are okay. George Washington, or even movie titles and book titles, Three Musketeers, as long as they're not on the board. Now, another thing for the Spy Master, they can't give any hints or say, oh, this one's a hard one, or this is a stretch. Oh, I'm making this kind of hard for you guys. No emotion, no words other than the clue and the number. That's all you say. Some people have to put a pillow over their face to hide them. Some people have to put a shirt over their face or a hoodie. You cannot say anything else or have any emotion, and you cannot stare at the card that you're hoping they have them guess. So to give a practice turn, if I was the red team and I have piano and I also have bugle, I might want to do instrument for 2. My team would deliberate and maybe they could say, oh, maybe he means mouth, maybe he could mean something else, but there's piano and bugle on the board. So their first guess, they would touch piano. I would take my red tile, I'd place it over piano, and now they have another guess if they want to, because I said for 2. If they look on the board and let's say they say mouth instead, the civilian card would go on, the turn would end for red, and now it would be blue team's turn. If they said bugle, they would get another one on top. Now, if they got both right, they technically get another guess if they wanted to, in case they missed a clue from a previous turn. So let's say a previous turn, I said soil for 1 and they did not get it. They could use an extra guess this turn to guess again. From there, you just keep going back and forth until one team guesses all their words or the assassin is guessed. Now, there is a timer if you'd like to use it. I have a house rule that if people start taking too long either giving a clue or guessing clues, then you could put a timer on them. But for your first couple games, I'd recommend no timer, or if you're playing with a lot of people, maybe no timer. That way it's more fun and you don't feel pressured. But the timer definitely adds an element to it that enhances the tension a lot. There's also blank clue cards, so you can add your own clues to them. That way you can have more fun with it, and if you have any inside jokes with your friends or family, adds more fun. Codenames is one of my favorite party games and one of my favorite word association games, but you need kind of a lot of people to play with. 2 people, it's kind of hard to play. They do have rules for 2 people, but I would not recommend it with just 2. 4 or more, you're starting to get into the thick of it. I would say 8, 10, 14, 20 people, you're in for a wild night. I once played with 10v10, and it was an incredible game because watching the Spy Master kind of just sweat and go crazy, hearing their team kind of think they know what they're talking about, but they have no idea, is one of the joys of this game. Because the team kind of has to assume and get into the mindset of the Spy Master, and the Spy Master has to get into the mindset of their team. And that's where you have this great debate going on. And if you are playing with friends or family members, that adds a whole nother layer to it. Because the team's like, no, I know this person. This person would think this way. When that person's like, no, I wouldn't think that. I would think the way you think because I'm trying to make it easier for you. Another cool thing about this game is there's so many configurations. There's so many different word cards and they're double-sided. There's so many key cards, and you can rotate them in different ways. So you'll never get tired of this game and you'll constantly keep playing different games. If you're a big fan of team games and word games, word association games, this should be on the top of your board game list. The next game you play with a bunch of friends or family members. And the games are so quick that you can keep on playing. You could put down another game and play another one and another one and another one. And then you could switch up the teams and see different dynamics of that. I love to play multiple times in the night. That way you can switch up the Spy Master so more people can see what it's like to give clues rather than guess clues. Now, some things that kind of get a little bit difficult in this game. As you notice, there are a white background for words and a beige background for words, trying to give you that two sides to it so the other team can see what's going on. It's not that helpful because it's kind of hard to see the non-white background of the words. There are multiple times I've played where people go, oh, I didn't see that word, I couldn't quite read it, or they kind of forget that there's 25 words on there and maybe they miss a corner, maybe they miss a specific line. And so sometimes you can easily forget and miss words based on the font and the color they chose of them. Another thing about this game is this one's in English. They do have other languages that they have, check them out. But if you're playing with people that don't have English as their first language, it could get a little bit difficult for them. Another thing about this game is sometimes one team can get really bad luck. Some words could just not go together at all, whereas the other team has words that are just perfectly working together, and it's kind of unfair. But sometimes it's just the draw of the cards, and you'll get another one that works in your favor. I give this game a 10 out of 10 because it gives you so much joy and happiness. It's not one of those games where you get mad at each other or you end up in arguments, but rather you just get confused and you go, wait, how did you think about that? Show me how you thought about that. And you're kind of just like opening people's minds up to new meanings and new ways. I mean, there are the other instances where people sometimes do get mad. Like, how did you think of that? We could have won if that was the case. But it's always like a joyful, playful way of it. It's not like a risk or, you know, an angry, like, oh man, I want to like throw this board game up in the air. This is a game of words, and words are everywhere. And seeing people try to mash meanings together and stretch out in different ways that you never thought of possible is not only like incredibly intelligent, but it's so goofy sometimes because you're just like, I never thought of that before. What were they doing?